Nature of Man by Hippocrates. 1. He who's accustomed to hear speakers discuss the nature of man beyond its relations to medicine will not find the present account of any interest. For I don't say at all that a man is air or fire or water or earth or anything else that is not an obvious constituent of a man. Such accounts I leave to those that care to give them. Those, however, who give them have not, in my opinion, correct knowledge, for while adopting the same idea, they do not give the same account, though they add the same appendix to their idea, saying that what is a unity, and that this is both unity and the all, yet they are not agreed as to its name. One of them asserts that it is this one, and the all is air. Another calls it fire, another water, another earth, while each appends to his own account evidence and proof that amount to nothing. The fact that, while adopting the same idea, they do not give the same account, shows that their knowledge, too, is at fault. The best way to realize this is to be present at their debates. Given the same debaters and the same audience, the same man never wins in a discussion 3 times in succession. But now one is victor, now another, now he who happens to have the most glib tongue in the face of the crowd. Yet it's right that a man who claims correct knowledge about the facts should maintain his own argument victorious always, if his knowledge be knowledge of reality, and if he set it forth correctly. But in my opinion, such men, by their lack of understanding, overthrow themselves in the words of their very discussions, and establish the theory of Melissus. 2. Now, about these men I have said enough, and I will turn to physicians. Some of them say that a man is blood, others that he is bile, a few that he is phlegm. Physicians, like the metaphysicians, all add the same appendix, for they say that a man is a unity, giving it the name that severally they wish to give it. This changes its form and its power, being constrained by the hot and the cold, and becomes sweet, bitter, white, black, and so on. But in my opinion, these views are also incorrect. Most physicians then maintain views like these, if not identical with them. But I hold that if a man were a unity, he would never feel pain, as there would be nothing from which a unity could suffer pain. And if he were to suffer, the cure too would have to be one. But as a matter of fact, cures are many. For in the body are many constituents, which, by heating, by cooling, by drying, or by wetting one another contrary to nature, engender diseases, so that both the forms of diseases are many, and the healing of them is manifold. But I require of him who asserts that man is blood and nothing else to point out a man when he does not change his form or assume every quality, and to point out a time, a season of the year, or a season of human life, in which obviously blood is the only constituent of man. For it is only natural that there should be one season in which blood in itself appears as the sole constituent. My remarks apply also to him who says that man is only phlegm, and to him who says that man is bile. I, for my part, will prove that what I declare to be the constituents of a man are, according to both convention and nature, always alike the same. It makes no difference whether the man be young or old, whether the season be cold or hot. I will also bring evidence, and set forth the necessary causes why each constituent grows or decreases in the body. 3. Now, in the first place, generation cannot take place from a unity. How could a unity generate without copulating? Again, there is no generation unless the copulating partners be of the same kind, and possess the same qualities, nor would there be any offspring. Moreover, generation will not take place if the combination of hot with cold and of dry with moist be not tempered and equal. Should the one constituent be much in excess of the other, and the stronger be much stronger than the weaker, wherefore, how is it likely for a thing to be generated from one, when generation does not take place from more than one unless they chance to be mutually well-tempered? Therefore, since such is the nature both of all other things and of man, man of necessity is not one, but each of the components contributing to generation has in the body the power it contributed. Again, each component must return to its own nature, when the body of a man dies, moist to moist, dry to dry, hot to hot, and cold to cold. Such too is the nature of animals, and of all other things. All things are born in a like way, and all things die in a like way, for the nature of them is composed of all those things I have mentioned above. And each thing, according to what has been said, ends in that from which it was composed. So that too is whither it departs. 4. The body of man has in itself blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These make up the nature of his body, and through these he feels pain or enjoys health. Now he enjoys the most perfect health when these elements are duly proportioned to one another in respect of compounding power and bulk, and when they are perfectly mingled. Pain is felt when one of these elements is in defect or excess, or is isolated in the body without being compounded with all the others. For when an element is isolated and stands by itself, not only must the place which it is left become diseased, but the place where it stands in a flood must, because of the excess, cause pain and distress. In fact, when more of an element flows out of the body than is necessary to get rid of superfluity, the emptying causes pain. If, on the other hand, it be to an inward part that there takes place the emptying, the shifting and the separation from other elements, the man certainly must, according to what has been said, suffer from a double pain, one in the place left, and another in the place flooded. 5. Now, I promise to show that what are according to me the constituents of man remaining always the same according to both convention and nature. These constituents are, I hold, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. First, I assert that the names of these according to convention are separated, and that none of them has the same name as the others. Furthermore, that according to nature their essential forms are separated, phlegm being quite unlike blood, blood being quite unlike bile, bile being quite unlike phlegm. How could they be like one another when their colors appear not alike to the sight, nor does their touch seem alike to the hand? For they are not equally warm, nor cold, nor dry, nor moist. Since then they are so different from one another in essential form and in power, they cannot be one, if fire and water are not one. From the following evidence you may know that these elements are not all one, but that each of them has its own power and its own nature. If you were to give a man a medicine which withdraws phlegm, he will vomit you phlegm. If you give him one which will withdraw bile, he will vomit you bile. Similarly, too, black bile is purged away if you give a medicine which withdraws black bile. And if you wound a man's body so as to cause a wound, blood will flow from it. And you will find that all these things happen on any day and on any night, both in winter and in summer, so long as the man can draw breath in and then breathe it out again, or until he is deprived of one of the elements congenital with him. Congenital with him, how should they not be so? Are the elements already mentioned. First, so long as a man lives, he manifestly has all these elements always in him. Then he is born out of a human being having all these elements, and is nursed in a human being having them all. I mean, those elements I have mentioned with proofs. 6. Those who assert that man is composed of one element seem to me to have been influenced by the following line of thought. They see those who drink drugs and die through excessive purgings, vomiting, in some cases bile, in others phlegm. Then they think that the man is composed of that one thing from the purging of which they saw him die. Those, too, who say that man is composed of blood use the same line of thought. They see men who are cut bleeding from the body, and so think that blood composes the soul of man. Such is the evidence they all use in their discussions. Yet first nobody yet in excessive purgings has vomited bile alone when he died. But when a man has drunk a drug which withdraws bile, he first vomits bile, then phlegm also. Afterwards, under stress, men vomit after these black bile, and finally they vomit also pure blood. The same experiences happen to those who drink drugs which withdraw phlegm. First they vomit phlegm, then yellow bile, then black, and finally pure blood, whereon they die. For when the drug enters the body, it first withdraws that constituent of the body which is most akin to itself, and then it draws and purges the other constituents. For just as things that are sown and grow in the earth when they enter it, draw each that constituent of the earth which is nearest akin to it, these are the acid, the bitter, the sweet, the salt, and so on. First the plant draws to itself mostly that element which is most akin to it, and then it draws the other constituents also. Such too is the action of drugs in the body. Those that withdraw bile first evacuate absolutely pure bile. Then bile that is mixed. Those that withdraw phlegm first withdraw absolutely pure phlegm, and then phlegm that is mixed. And when men are cut, the blood that flows is at first very hot and very red, and then it flows with more phlegm and bile mixed with it. 7. Phlegm increases in a man in winter, for phlegm, being the coldest constituent of the body, is closest akin to winter. A proof that phlegm is very cold is that if you touch phlegm, bile, and blood, you will find phlegm the coldest. And yet it is the most viscid, and after black bile requires most force for its evacuation. But things that are moved by force become hotter under the stress of the force. Yet, in spite of all this, phlegm shows itself the coldest element by reason of its own nature. That winter fills the body with phlegm you can learn from the following evidence. It is in winter that the sputum and nasal discharge of men is fullest of phlegm. At this season, mostly swellings become white, and diseases generally phlegmatic. And in spring too, phlegm still remains strong in the body, while the blood increases. For the cold relaxes and the rains come on, while the blood accordingly increases, through the showers and the hot days. For these conditions of the year are most akin to the nature of blood, spring being moist and warm. You can learn the truth from the following facts. It is chiefly in spring and summer that men are attacked by dysenteries and by hemorrhage from the nose, and they are then hottest and red. And in summer blood is still strong, and bile rises in the body and extends until autumn. In autumn blood becomes small in quantity, as autumn is opposed to its nature, while bile prevails in the body during the summer season and during autumn. You may learn this truth from the following facts. During this season, men vomit bile without an emetic, and when they take purges, the discharges are most bilous. It is plain, too, from fevers and from complexions of men. But in summer, phlegm is at its weakest, for the season is opposed to its nature, being dry and warm. But in autumn, blood becomes least in man, for autumn is dry and begins from this point to chill him. It is black bile, which in autumn is greatest and strongest. When winter comes on, bile being chilled becomes small in quantity, and phlegm increases again because of the abundance of rain and the length of the nights. All these elements then are always comprised in the body of a man, but as the year goes round they become now greater and now less, each in turn and according to its nature. For just as every year participates in every element, the hot, the cold, the dry, and the moist, none, in fact, of these elements would last for a moment without all the things that exist in this universe. But if one were to fail, all would disappear. For by reason of the same necessity, all things are constructed and nourished by one another. Even so, if any of these congenital elements were to fail, the man could not live. In the year, sometimes the winter is most powerful, sometimes the spring, sometimes the summer, and sometimes the autumn. So too in man sometimes phlegm is powerful, sometimes blood, sometimes bile. First yellow, and then what is called black bile. The clearest proof is that if you will give the same man to drink the same drug 4 times in the year, he will vomit, you will find, the most phlegmatic matter in the winter, the moistest in the spring, the most bilous in the summer, and the blackest in the autumn. 8. Now, as these things are so, such diseases as increase in the winter ought to cease in the summer, and such as increase in the summer ought to cease in the winter, with the exception of those which do not change in a period of days. The period of days I shall speak of afterwards. When diseases arise in spring, expect their departure in autumn. Such diseases as arise in autumn must have their departure in spring. Whenever a disease passes these limits, you may know that it will last a year. The physician, too, must treat diseases with the conviction that each of them is powerful in the body according to the season which is most conformable to it. 9. Furthermore, one must know that diseases due to repletion are cured by evacuation, and those due to evacuation are cured by repletion. Those due to exercise are cured by rest, and those due to idleness are cured by exercise. To know the whole matter, the physician must set himself against the established character of diseases, of constitutions, of seasons, and of ages. He must relax what is tense and make tense what is relaxed. For in this way the diseased part would rest most, and this, in my opinion, constitutes treatment. Diseases arise in some cases from regimen, in other cases from the air, by the inspiration of which we live. The distinction between the two should be made in the following way. Whenever many men are attacked by one disease at the same time, the cause should be assigned to that which is most common, and which we all use most. This it is which we breathe in, for it is clear that the regimen of each of us is not the cause, since the disease attacks all in turn, both younger and older, men as much as women, those who drink wine as much as teetotalers, those who eat barley cake as much as those who live on bread, those who take much exercise as well as those who take little. For regimen could not be the cause, when no matter what regimen they have followed, all men are attacked by the same disease. But when diseases of all sorts occur at one and the same time, it is clear that in each case the particular regimen is the cause, and that the treatment carried out should be that opposed to the cause of the disease, as had been set forth by me elsewhere also, and should be by change of regimen. For it is clear that of the regimen the patient is wont to use, either all, or the greatest part, or some one part, is not suited to him. This one should learn and change, and carry out treatment only after examination of the patient's constitution, age, physique, the season of the year and the fashion of the disease, sometimes taking away and sometimes adding, as I have already said, and so making changes in drugging or in the regimen to suit the several conditions of age, season, physique, and disease. But when an epidemic of one disease is prevalent, it is plain that the cause is not regimen, but what we breathe, and that this charged with some unhealthy exhalation. During this period, these are the recommendations that should be made to patients. They should not change their regimen, as it is not the cause of their disease, but rather take care that their body be as thin and as weak as possible, by diminishing their usual food and drink gradually. For if the change of regimen be sudden, there is a risk that from the change too some disturbance will take place in the body, but regimen should be used in this way when it manifestly does no harm to a patient. Then, care should be taken that inspiration be of the lightest, and also from a source as far removed as possible. The place should be moved as far as possible from that in which the disease is epidemic, and the body should be reduced, for such reduction will minimize the need of deep and frequent breathing. 10. Those diseases are most dangerous which arise in the strongest part of the body. For should the disease remain where it began, the whole body, as the strongest limb in it feels pain, must be in pain. While should the disease move from a stronger part to one of the weaker parts, the riddance of it proves difficult. But when diseases move from the weaker parts to the stronger parts, it is easier to get rid of them, as the strength of the stronger part will easily consume the humours that flow into them. 11. The thickest of the veins have the following nature. There are 4 parts in the body. One pair extends from behind the head through the neck, and on the other side of the spine externally reaches to the loins and legs, and then stretches through the shanks to the outside of the ankles and to the feet. So, bleeding for pains in the back and loins should be made on the outside, behind the knee or at the ankle. The other pair of veins extend from the head by the ears through the neck and are called jugular veins. They stretch right and left by the side of the spine, internally along the loins to the testicles and the thighs, then on the inside through the hollow of the knee, and finally through the shanks to the ankles on the inside and to the feet. Accordingly, to counteract pains in the loins and testicles, bleeding should be performed in the hollow of the knee and in the ankles of the inner side. The third pair of veins passes from the temples through the neck under the shoulder blades. Then they meet in the lungs and reach the one on the right, the left side, and the one on the left, the right. The right one reaches from the lungs under the breast both to the spleen and to the kidneys, and the one on the left to the right from the lungs under the breast both to the liver and to the kidneys, both of them ending at the anus. The fourth pair begin at the front of the head and eyes, under the neck and collarbones, passing on the upper part of the arms to the elbows, then through the forearms to the wrists and fingers. Then, back from the fingers they go through the ball of the hand and the forearm upwards to the elbow, and through the upper arm on the underside to the armpit, and from the ribs above one reaches to the spleen and the other to the liver, and finally both pass over the belly to the privy parts. Such is the arrangement of the thick veins. From the belly too extend over the body very many veins of all sorts, by which nourishment comes to the body. Veins too lead from thick veins to the belly and to the rest of the body, both from the outside and from the inside. They communicate with one another, the inside ones outside and the outside ones inside. Bleeding then should be practiced according to these principles. The habit should be cultivated of cutting as far as possible from the places where the pains are wont to occur and the blood to collect. In this way, the change will be least sudden and violent, and you will change the habit so that the blood no longer collects in the same place. 12. Such as expectorate much pus without fever, or have a thick sediment of pus in the urine without pain, or whose stools remain stained with blood, as in dysentery, during a long period, being 35 years or older, all these are ill from the same cause. For these patients must have been in their youth hard-working, diligent, and industrious. Afterwards, when delivered from their labors, they must have put on soft flesh, very different from their former flesh, and there must be a wide difference between the previous condition and the hypertrophied condition of their body, so that there is no longer harmony. Accordingly, when a disease seizes men in such a condition, at first they escape, but after the disease, the body in time wastes and serous matter flows through the veins wherever it finds the broadest passage. Now, if the flux be to the lower bowel, the stools become very like the matter shut up in the body, because as the passage slopes downwards, the matter cannot remain long in the intestine. When the flux is to the chest, the patient suffers suppuration, because since the purging is long and upward passage and abides a long time in the chest, it rots and turns to pus. When the matter empties itself into the bladder, owing to the warmth of the place, the matter becomes hot and white, and separates itself out. The finest part becomes scum on the top, while the thickest sinks to the bottom and is called pus. Stones too form in children because of the heat of this place and of the whole body, but in men stones do not form because of the coldness of the body. For you must know that a man is warmest on the first day of his existence, and coldest on the last. For it must be that the body is hot, which grows and progresses with force, but when the body begins to decay, with an easy decline it grows colder. It is on account of this that a man growing most on his first day is proportionally hotter than, on his last day, decaying most, he is proportionally cooler. Most patients in the condition described above recover their health spontaneously 45 days from the day on which they began to waste. Such of them as exceed this period, should no other illnesses occur, recover spontaneously in a year. 13. Diseases which arise soon after their origin, and whose cause is clearly known, are those the history of which can be foretold with the greatest certainty. The patient himself must bring about a cure by combating the cause of the disease, for in this way will be removed that which caused the disease in the body. 14. Patients whose urine contains a deposit of sand or chalk suffer at first from tumors near the thick vein, with suppuration. Then, since the tumors do not break quickly, from the pus there grow out pieces of chalk, which are pressed outside through the vein into the bladder with the urine. Those whose urine is merely blood-stained have suffered in the veins. When the urine is thick, and there are passed with it small pieces of flesh like hair, you must know that these symptoms result from the kidneys and arthritic complaints. When the urine is clear, but from time to time, as it were, bran appears in it, the patient suffers from psoriasis of the bladder. 15. Most fevers come from bile. There are 4 sorts of them, apart from those that arise in distinctly separate pains. Their names are the continued, the quotidian, the tertian, and the quartan. Now, what is called the continued fever comes from the most abundant and the purest bile, and its crises occur after the shortest interval. For since the body has no time to cool, it wastes away rapidly, being warmed by the great heat. The quotidian next to the continued comes from the most abundant bile, and ceases quicker than any other, though it is longer than the continued, proportionally to the lesser quantity of bile from which it comes. Moreover, the body has a breathing space, whereas in the continued, there is no breathing space at all. The tertian is no longer than the quotidian, and is the result of less bile. The longer the breathing space enjoyed by the body in the case of the tertian than in the case of the quotidian, the longer this fever is than the quotidian. The quartans are in general similar, but they are more protracted than the tertians, insofar as their portion is less of the bile that causes heat, while the intervals are greater in which the body cools. It is from black bile that this excessive obstinacy arises, for black bile is the most viscous of the humours in the body, and that which sticks fast the longest. Hereby you will know that quartan fevers participate in the atrabulous element, because it is mostly in autumn that men are attacked by quartans, and between the ages of 25 and 45. This age is that which of all ages is most under the mastery of black bile, just as autumn is the season of all seasons which is most under its mastery. Such as are attacked by a quartan fever outside this period and this age, you may be sure you will not suffer from a long fever, unless the patient be the victim of another malady as well.